Today is March 9th, 2016, and my name is Kenneth Vandenberg, and I am here with Mike Randerson, who is on the board of the Freedom Area Historical Society with me, and we are interviewing Robert John Casey Vandenberg. This interview is being recorded for Freedom Area Historical Society. It's part of our oral history program, and I am filming the interview, and both Mike and I are doing the interview. So what's your full name?
Robert John Vandenberg.
And what's your nickname?
Casey.
Are you named after anybody in your family?
Not that I know of. Probably my grandpa Gertz, I think.
His name was John?
John.
And your nickname you said is Casey?
No, it is.
How'd you get that nickname?
1946. They were starting a softball league at Skunk Hill. And I got a pick for the Jack's Bar Rag team. And Kenny Romanesco gave me the nickname Casey.
Why did he give you that nickname?
I was named after Casey at the bat.
Do you know the poem Casey at the Bat?
No.
So you can't recite it for us.
No.
Alright, well for those that are
I know that mighty Casey had struck out.
Yep, and that was from a poem that was written in the 1890s. So you said it was for the Jack Rag team?
Jack's Bar Rags.
What's Jack's Bar Rags?
Jack Rickens was tending bar for Nick Leash. They were back from service, and he sponsored the softball team, and I was named catcher of that team, I guess.
And Jack sponsored it, or Jack Rankin sponsored it, or Nick Leash did?
I think Jack Rickens, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So what's your earliest memory of growing up in Freedom?
Oh boy. I remember, I guess, one big snowstorm that I know I had to carry a saw up to the feed mill for my dad to use.
Do you know about what year that was?
No, before I went to school, so I don't know. I remember going to school at St. Nick's and graduating in 1942, and I went to Freedom High School. Got out in 1946, went to work at Kimberly Clark in the paper mill at Kimberly. Worked there for 1 year. Then I went to work for Frank Murphy, gravel pit. I worked then for Thilmany's for 1 year. And in 1961 I started at Badger Northland. And I retired in 1990.
What did you do at the gravel pit?
I was not crane, but crusher operator. Funky work.
So you crushed gravel?
Drove truck.
And that was right here in Freedom?
No, in
Where was-
Medina.
Oneida?
Medina.
Oh, Medina. So did you live at home when you worked there?
I lived at Murphy's when I worked there.
Okay. And what's your first memory of going to school at St. Nick's?
I started remembering in the 3rd grade we had Sister Liberta, and I don't think she should have been a teacher. She I remember beating it. The kids who were really retarded like Eddie Demrath, and she would pound on them, something terrible.
Who are some of the nuns you remember as teachers that you really liked?
Oh, Sister Anthony was in the 5th grade. Sister Lamina was in the 6th grade. Sister Rosaire was in the 7th grade. Sister Celestine was the principal and the teacher in the 8th grade.
What was your favorite class?
U.S. history.
And what else do you remember about going to school at St. Nick's?
I remember when he used to ring the bell on top of the school, we'd march around the cemetery for rogation days. And what was the other? There was one more they used to go around the cemetery for.
And is that the bell that you eventually owned?
And that's the bell that I bought from Lawrence Gunring.
How much did you pay for that?
$2.
And what did you do with the bell eventually?
I donated it back to St. Nick's.
Yep, so it's back on the school building today, isn't it?
Yes.
So you went to St. Nick's while Father Van Dyke was here.
Yes.
And Father Van Dyke was in freedom for a long time, and people still talk about him.
26 years, I think, or something like that.
What are some of your memories of Father Van Dyke?
What my memories of Father Van Dyke? Well, I would know one thing. It was his favorite saying, I think, when you were educated, you would graduate.
Say that one more time just so we have it on camera.
When you were educated, you would graduate.
So, and Father Van Dyke was from Holland, right?
He originally was from Holland and came to freedom from Wabeno.
And what else do you remember about him?
He had awfully big feet. When you serve mass, you would big feet. I remember stealing his wine for a little nip once in a while. But
You stole his wine? Now, his personal wine or the sacramental wine?
the sacramental wine was in the church basement.
Did you ever confess that?
I don't think so. I got caught and lost my job as a mass server.
So you got booted from being a mass server for taking the wine.
Yeah, that was maybe part of it. I don't know.
And what did your mom and dad think of that?
I don't think they ever said anything.
And what is your father's name?
Ed Vandenberg,
And what was his nickname?
Punkin,
How did he get his nickname?
from his Aunt Liz.
Do you know what it meant?
Oh, it was just a nickname
Did-
for a baby. Not Punkin, but Pumpkin, so
And his Aunt Liz, is she the one who raised him?
part-time. His mother died when he was a year and a half old, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Mary Schultz. I know he lived at with Andrew Shoes and Liz Vandenberg, and I don't know who else. He
And
went
what?
to St. Nick's.
He what?
He went to St. Nick's, and
Okay.
he quit in the 6th grade. Didn't go back to school.
What did he do when he quit?
I don't know exactly when he quit, but well, his first, I know he went to the lumber woods at oh hell, Hollister.
And have you ever seen any of the pictures of him as a lumberjack?
Yeah, there used to be a few around.
We have some at the Historical Society of him when he was a lumberjack. And what was your mother's name?
Mary Gertz.
And what memories do you have of your mother?
Oh, she was a good woman. I really liked her. And I remember in 1937 he bought the old bowling alleys. Was going to make a warehouse out of it. The young guys all came and they wanted to bowl, so they cleaned the coal off of the alleys and had them refinished, and he ran the old bowling alleys until 1945, I think. He sold to Joe Reinebow.
What was the name of the bowling alley?
Van's Alleys.
Mike, do you remember ever going to the bowling alley?
Absolutely, I remember. You're talking about the bowling alley,
The one that's
yeah,
the
where
warehouse
that
now.
Nick Leash had in the end.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I actually set pins at that bowling alley as a young man, but I did not realize. So Casey, it was a bowling alley, and then
It was a horse barn first.
okay, and then it was a coal storage.
No, it was a bowling alley. Heine Schomer ran it,
Okay,
and it was closed then, and during the Depression, I don't know what happened. And my dad bought it for $400.
okay,
I was going to make a feed warehouse out of it. He had the feed mill. And then the people came to him and they wanted to bowl, so they polished the alleys up. And I remember every year they'd have a big painting contest, or not contest, but Joe Gertz and his wife and Pete Duke and his wife and Webb Arbor and his wife, they'd all come in one, they'd get together and they'd slap the paint on one night and it was set to go then the next year. I remember the guy coming out and sanding the alleys every year,
yeah.
get them sanctioned.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you remember about the pin setters from during the Depression? You told me a story about that.
Well, when he first opened up the bowling alley, they got 3 cents a line for setting pins. And there used to be so many guys that wanted to set pins that they would almost fight to get down there to set.
Wow.
They were growing men, some of them.
This was right after the Depression, or during the Depression,
During
or
the Depression, yeah, 37.
Yeah.
So they needed the money that badly that they would fight to get those jobs.
They needed the job and the money, that's right.
Yeah.
What else do you remember about the bowling alley?
Not too awful much, except, they had teams, I think, 3 nights a week. They had men's teams, a couple of men's league and a ladies league, I know that.
Now, Mom says you're the best bowler she's ever seen. Is that where you learned how to bowl?
Where I had to, but no, I don't think I was the best bowler she'd ever seen.
And you worked as a pin setter yourself?
I worked, yeah, from probably 1938 till 1944, 45.
And did you work behind the bar too?
A little bit for my dad once in a while, but not very often.
What do you remember about pin setting?
Not a lot different than it was now. They were the old machines. You picked up the pins, you had to bring them down by hand and set them and look out for the extra ball coming down.
Oh,
Some of them guys wouldn't have 2 balls there, and they banged one ball after the other, so you had to jump like hell.
Yeah.
What do you remember about setting pins, Mike?
Well, pretty much just like your dad says. I can remember when I set pins in 1955, 54 probably, 55, in that neck of the woods. And I think I weighed like 100 pounds. You had all you could do to reset, to pull the lever and pull the machine down to set the pins up. The other thing, like your dad says, like we would set on 2 alleys at the same time, alternate back and forth. It was hard work. I mean, after a shift, your tongue was hanging out. right, Casey?
Yeah.
And I remember, like your dad was saying, there was leagues, and they'd have an early and a late shift. And so I think, if my memory serves me right, the early shift was like 7 till 9, and the second shift was 9 till like 11 o'clock
Yeah.
or something like that. And I remember having to get up and go to school afterwards, and I'm sure you do the same.
I
you know.
always did.
Yeah. So it was hard work, very hard work.
How much did you get paid for setting pins?
I got 10 cents a line, so you could make. There was 5 men on a team, so they would each bowl 3 games, so that'd be 30 lines, you know, for the opposing team. So you could make as much as $6 a night, which was a lot of money at that time. $3 for a single shift, $6 for a
Yeah.
double.
And do you remember, did you get paid since your parents owned it or not?
Well, sure I did.
What did you get paid?
Whatever they were going. They went to a nickel, I think, when they raised bowling, so raised to 25 cents. It was 15 cents a line at first to bowl.
So, you got caught stealing the Sacramento wine. Did you ever steal any liquor from the bowling alley?
No,
No?
no.
Do you have any other memories of the bowling alley?
I remember some of the people that used to come and bowl.
Like who?
John School and Paulie out and Owen and what's that, all the young guys, Del Huss and Heine Schomer was probably one of the better bowlers in town. I also watched the foul lines too, and I remember calling by Heine Schomer for a foul one time, and boy, he just chewed me left and right.
But he did foul, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He had to have it, he'd approach the line, and then he would back up a step or two after he threw the ball.
How old was he then?
Oh, I don't know, he was older than my dad, so.
Okay. Who were your best friends growing up? Who do you remember playing with?
Rusty Murphy at school and Tony Dicker after in high school. Jim Van Dyke. I don't know. We had ball at school, baseball or softball, when whoever you was in your class you played with, you know. 8th graders played on the big diamond up in front of the old school, and 3rd and 4th graders, I guess, played out on the road on Hess, and 6th graders would play on the in front of the old toilets in the back.
So you have good memories of St. Nick's then when you went to school there?
Oh, sure.
And you went to high school in Freedom during World War II.
Right.
What do you remember about going to high school during the war?
We lost, I know the year before I started, they lost the athletic director, John McCormick, went to New London to teach, and then he went into service. And we had Ben Tremmel was the principal, and Mrs. Tremmel was the business and mathematics teacher, and she was an excellent teacher. And Miss Wassenberger, I don't know, don't remember the subjects, and Miss Beckler was our English teacher.
And didn't one of the teachers actually used to buy beer for you guys?
Well, we won't mention her name. She's dead, and let her rest in peace.
So, but one of the teachers did buy beer for you.
Yeah.
And did she party with you guys too?
Once I partied with her.
Were you there when, and I can't remember his name, but the guy who introduced boxing?
Introduced boxing, oh,
And-
that would be John McCormick who introduced boxing.
Who's the one who brought the school districts together?
Bob Backover.
Yeah. Were you there when he was there?
He came in February of my senior year.
What do you remember about him and what do you think about him?
Bob Backover was a great man. I don't think there'd be a high school in Freedom today if Bob Backover didn't come and get the line set to the district they have now. He was a man who was served in the Marine Corps in China. He was wounded through the arm. And I remember we went on our class trip to Milwaukee and I ended up carrying his suitcase. Mr. Backover, we were there and he met a man that he was in service with at a bar and they had a few drinks. He was a great man. Bob Backover was one of the best men that ever walked in Freedom.
Wow.
Did he live in Freedom?
Yes, he did. First he rented a house from Ed Peterson and then he lived in, I don't know who had the house, but one of those houses on Highway E on this side of the old harness shop.
Okay. What other memories do you have about growing up in Freedom?
I guess there were a lot of them, I don't know. Good memories, bad memories.
So the house you live in now was your parents' house,
Yes,
and they bought it in 1922 when they got married.
I think he bought it before he got married.
Okay. And who did he buy it from?
Jim Garvey.
And didn't Jim Garvey say something to him about the outhouse when he bought it?
Yeah, with a privy out back here, and he said, everything's in good shape except the privy, and you got nobody else to blame but yourself for that because you've always tipped it over on Halloween night.
That's a good one too.
So you were actually born in this house.
Yes, I was.
What day were you born?
According to Mike Rennerson, I was born on a Sunday in 1928, November 24th.
And you've lived in this house most of your life except for a short time when you lived next door.
Yes.
Do you remember how the house was remodeled when you were a kid?
Oh, some I was only about 6 years old or 7.
And so when the
I
house
remember
was...
going upstairs on a ladder. They had set up, the carpenters were gone. They were putting flooring down, the subflooring, and I drove a couple nails in. That much I remember.
And then when the upstairs was finished, those became apartments and offices for doctors, didn't they?
No, just an apartment that Dr. Boyd rented.
Do you remember Dr. Boyd living here?
Sure do.
What do you remember about the time when he lived here?
Oh, really not much. I wasn't very old. He only lived here, I think, for 1 year. Had a doctor's office in the old bowling alley. With the alleys were closed, and he had an office in there for 1 year, I think, and then moved with his dad to office into Kaukauna.
And did anybody else rent the upstairs after Dr. Boyd?
Oh, a number of people can. I don't remember who all had it. Harold Van Dyke and Norm Dowell, Mike Vandenberg,
Your Uncle Mike?
Uncle Mike, when he first got married, till he bought a house across the road.
So your Uncle Mike Vandenberg, and he married Lorraine
Gunring.
Vandenberg. And then later on, I remember when I was a kid, your Uncle Joe Gertz and Verna Gertz lived up there for a while when they were building a new house.
Yes.
Yep. I remember them living up there too for a while. Now, this was a farm when you grew up, right?
No. First it was just this piece of land from where that goes down and they cross Vandenberg Street and went over to right on this side of the road and back out. And then after Bill Van Rixel, who lived next door, passed away, my dad bought 50 feet on the right side here, and Pete Eben lived 2 houses down, and they were getting mighty old, and whenever he would run short of money, he would sell a piece of land to my dad. So we ended up getting the lot next door and land in back of the house, which went to Hank Van Dyke, as far as Hank Van Dyke's line fence.
So at one time, this was a pretty big chunk of property. And it's for being in town, it still is a pretty big chunk of property in Freedom.
Yeah.
And then didn't your grandpa and grandma Vandenberg eventually live just next door, just down the street from you?
They lived in the third house down. My grandpa and my step grandmother.
So what do you remember about your grandpa Vandenberg when he used to call your uncles to work in the morning?
I always he called them by their age of birth: Sylvester, Clarence, Leo, and Alvin. Time to get up. That was always 4:30. He would get up, put the cows in the barn. 5 o'clock, the boys would be up.
Yep.
Did the milking, the chores, and they would catch a ride with the milk truck driver. Would pick up the milk up to town here.
So when they came uptown, were they coming up here to go to school?
Yes.
And what other memories do you have of your grandpa Vandenberg and your grandma Vandenberg?
Oh, I have lots of memories of my grandpa Vandenberg. His birthday was on the 4th of July, and I can remember my dad going down there with cut pieces of dynamite that would, him and Nick Leash would always shoot off dynamite. He would cut it in about 4 or 5 pieces, and then he would sneak down there, but he'd try to wake Grandpa up, but Grandpa was always awake before he got there, I think. And I remember all the big parties we had there. 4th of July, we would go, the neighbors would come, and his nieces and nephews would come. He, I can remember him getting out his old accordion, and all the kids would get around him and sing songs he'd play.
This was like an outdoor picnic kind of a thing?
It was just a family birthday party, and
Yeah.
4th of July was his birthday.
But I mean, it was outside?
Oh, outside, inside,
Yeah,
all over.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great time. I can remember the caramel corn Grandma used to make. She'd make big dishes of caramel corn for the kids, popcorn balls, and that's when a family was a family.
Yeah.
Did you spend a lot of time there?
I spent a lot of time in my Grandpa Vandenberg's.
What else do you remember about the time you spent with him? Like, don't you have memories of your aunt Stella, who became Sister Germaine baking?
I remember her a little. I remember that she'd always bake rolls on certain days of the week. We'd sneak down there in the summer, and you knew when the rolls were being made, and she'd hand us a roll. Oh, I remember Grandpa very well. I helped him hay and stuff like that when during the war, when Leo went to service. Bess was gone to service.
Oh, Casey, where was that farm? I'm not sure.
The farm that Jack Wisniewski is on now.
Okay.
Where the tree farm is?
What?
The tree farm?
Yes.
And that actually, that house went up for sale today.
Oh, did it?
Yep.
He had 160 acres at one time, and he sold 60 acres to Vandings. Now, I happened before I was around. He owned that across the road, that 60 acres that was in the swamp. And I knew my dad used to go and do a lot of rabbit hunting and stuff in the fall. And then Leo got the gun, the old one single shotgun. And he took the back plate off, and there was a hunting license of my dad's in there from 1917 or something.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And that they brought up to the cottage. I don't know if it's still there or not, but.
And oh, go ahead.
1946. Well, we went to Lakewood in 1944, I think, the first time, or 42. I don't know. I can't remember, but we rented a place from Give Boots out on Highway F. There was a little lake you had to walk down through the woods to get there. Used to catch perch about 3 inches long. We stayed there for one or two summers, and then him and my mother went to Taunton and rented a cottage from Haberstadt's on the channel, or on Floyd. And man, it was the best bluegill fishing there ever was. Used to push that little boat out and go out there and just drift across that thing, and he would catch bluegills. And then he bought that lot on Chain Lake in 1946. $400 he paid for that lot. Was 80 foot wide and 400 foot deep. And next year we built the cottage, and we had that until 1951 when it was struck by lightning. And it burnt. In the early part of June and 4th of July we went up there and we built a cottage and we slept in it.
What, do you have any other memories of Lakewood?
Oh, a lot of memories of Lakewood.
Casey, that had to be quite a ride to go up there back in those days, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hour and a half,
Okay.
something like that. But it, I remember Lakewood. I remembered very well. It was like my second home. I remember Carl Greiner and I went up first year deer hunting for 1947. We'd sneak into Sig's Tavern and get a couple beers. We could go up to Gilbert's because we were 18 and have beer there.
Now this isn't old Carl, this is Stoop Grinder you're
Stoop
talking?
Grinder,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we hunted together for 20 years or more.
How did Stoop get his nickname?
They're named after the comic strips.
What comic strip was that?
Oh, I don't know. Big Stoop was in it, I knew that. And Bill was Wimpy. And Hump. Bob, what the heck was his name? He had a nickname too.
Beaver.
Beaver, yeah. Jim, I don't know what he was.
I don't think he had a nickname. I don't remember one anyway.
What do you remember about growing up in the Depression?
And what?
The Depression.
I don't really remember a lot, Ken. We had, my dad had the feed mill, and we always had plenty of meat, and people could charge something or something. You'd get half a pig or and a quarter of beef, so we had that. And I remember my canning meat quite often. Then Grinders put in a locker. We had a big locker drawer there, and I remember I was in high school, I had that old Model A Ford. I had to go to the locker, and I went in and closed the door, and you'd think I could get that damn door open.
Oh my gosh.
I was in there for a long time, and I said, no, it's either do or die, I guess. So I must have pushed that just right and the door opened and I got out, but I remember that.
Yeah.
And you raised chickens during the Depression, didn't you?
Oh, you'd raise 100 laying hens and we'd get 200 roosters in the summer. Not all at one time, would get 100 at a time. I can remember when all white rocks and got a certain size, we'd butcher 25 every Saturday that he had sold, and we'd deliver them around. And my mother would dress them, and we would pick gosh darn chicken feathers. So did that for a few years.
Remember how you had to scald them? Get
Yeah.
the feathers to come
Yeah.
loose, remember?
Oh.
And then you,
My dad could pick a chicken faster than anybody I knew.
is that right?
I don't know. Holy crapes. That's the way they made their money during the Depression
Oh,
and
yes,
stuff.
people-
They kept
people-
going.
People did whatever they had to
Yes,
do,
they
didn't they?
did.
Yes.
But he was a real go-getter, you said.
Yeah. Then I remember before we had the cottage when I was just in grade school and stuff, go to Pamperin Park on weekends and fish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also remember lots of times going there and spearing suckers.
Yeah. Did you go there for the smelt runs ever?
They never was a smelt run at Duck Creek.
Oh, really?
No.
I thought there was. Okay.
Did you have a big garden?
We always had a big garden. First was the old lot out here and back. I know there'd be 14 rows of potatoes from the top to the bottom. I knew that. And then the right hand of the side of the garden, that's where my mother would plant whatever she was going to plant. And there were 3-4 big asparagus patches around we'd pick. Yeah, lots of canning, I know that.
Yeah.
Canned tomatoes and peppers and crates, everything there was, they would put in a can, and then in the fall cow would have that calf, they would raise it so long, and then they would can that meat.
Did you keep your potatoes down in a bin in the basement?
You
Yeah,
bet.
that's how we did it too back in the
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
When we were growing up as kids next door, we still had a potato bin for a while. We had a big bin of potatoes in that house.
We had a potato bin in this house.
Yep. And you had, in addition to the chickens and the roosters, you had a cow, right? For
We
milk?
had one cow and either 1 or 2 horses. One was a Shetland pony. That got to be a little light for it, so much land that he bought, that extra land. Then we bought the old Scout. It was an Indian pony. He was a good horse.
No,
Oh, crazy. Take him out and you would put him out in the field and you'd come into the house. He'd never step over a potato plant. He'd stand just as still, and that old cultivator was there.
Huh.
That had that old dolly, I remember her. You'd go out to catch her and she would, I don't know where, but she would run around in circles. And we'd put a rope on her. She got to know that and she'd stomp that thing off.
Mm-hmm.
She was quite a horse.
Did
When
you
you
take-
catch her,
Yeah.
she was as gentle as anything that was. But boy, up until you caught her, she would kick people. And
Well, when you tried to put the bridle on her, did she really?
no,
Then
when
the
you once
fight
had,
was over.
when you once had her, she was just as calm as anybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Bought those horses from John Gunring. Yeah.
And who got to ride who got to ride the horse when you were cultivating the rows?
Anna May always rode the horse.
And why did Anna May get to ride it?
I don't know why she got to ride it. But she
You always said she got to ride it because she was your dad's favorite.
favorite, I thought.
She says she got to ride it because she's the only one who was the right size to ride it.
I suppose, I don't know.
Because she said you and Elaine would always complain that she got to ride the horse.
Yeah. she'd cultivate by hand, and she'd ride the horse, and Elaine and I did the hoeing.
And those are your sisters, Anna Mae and Elaine.
Yes.
And they both still live in Freedom too.
Yep. They live. My Anna Mae lives right down the street here, and Elaine did live it back, built a house, and then they sold that and moved out in the country.
What else do you remember about the Depression?
Not much, Ken. We never had it tough. We always had enough to eat. And we went to shows on Saturday night,
And where did you go see the shows?
mostly at the Vaudette in Kokona.
And what movies did you see mostly?
Westerns.
And Gene Autry was your favorite?
No, Roy Rogers.
Did you like Dale Evans too?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember any of those movies?
Oh, I'd see him come on TV. Sometimes I remembered a little bit, not much.
Yeah.
What other movies do you remember seeing as a kid?
Oh, there was always a serial on it with the shows. I remember Zorro used to be in the shows, and I don't know who else. And then I got to be a little older, and Jimmy Stewart was one of my favorites, and as Irish asked Maureen O'Hara, she was my favorite lady actress, I think.
And she just recently passed away. She was
Yes.
95, I believe.
Yeah.
And you thought she was the most beautiful lady in movies?
Oh, I did. I don't know.
Oh, she was right pretty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With
Irish
She
girl.
was a
though.
great actress
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
An Irish girl.
Yeah.
She was, with her flaming red hair, and she was right from Ireland.
Yes. Yes, she was.
What other movie stars do you remember liking? I know you said Jimmy Stewart. You liked Spencer Tracy too, didn't you?
Spencer Tracy was a good actor.
What about Bogart or Cagney? The
Oh
gangsters?
yeah, James Cagney, he was a good actor in this.
In fact, oh, go ahead.
I think there were a lot of good actors then. Then, of course, I was young and I was very impersonable, I suppose, so we're impressionable. And they were a lot of fun watching this.
And didn't you see It's a Wonderful Life when it first came out?
The Wonderful Life. Yes, I did.
Yep, and that hardly anybody saw that movie. It wasn't a big hit, but you saw it when it first came out.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart.
Now, didn't you mainly go to movies in the summer because you had to work at the bowling alley during the fall and winter?
Always. Yeah, we went to movies in the summer. We'd go on Saturday nights. We'd head to the movie theater in Kokona. He knew Van Dykes very well. My dad did.
Mm-hmm.
Did Van Dykes own it?
Yes,
The Vaudette.
Bill Van Dyke.
Okay. What do you remember about freedom in World War II?
Don't remember much except I know there were this street, Highway S and Highway E and 55 were the only streets in town. That I knew.
But you had two of your uncles were called up, Uncle Leo and Uncle Vess.
And Elvin.
Oh, Elvin was too.
Elvin went later.
How did that affect your grandpa and your family?
I guess it was something that everybody was doing, so I don't really know. I was only a kid. I don't really remember.
And you were one of the first firemen in Freedom.
I was, yeah, with the first group of firemen. I was there.
And your dad is one of the founders
With
of
founder,
the department?
Yeah. Yes.
So, what caused Freedom to get its own volunteer fire department? And Mike, you know a little bit about this too.
Yeah.
It came after Nick Leish's Tavern burnt in 1955,
Yeah.
December. And they had meetings and they got together and decided, when we went to Hollandtown, we looked there over, they had a volunteer fire department that wasn't owned by the town, it was owned privately. And after seeing that and stuff, met with Red Fossbender, their chief. They decided to start a fire department in Freedom. And Grand Chute was getting a new fire truck, and they had the 37 Ford for sale. They raised the money and they had committees who would go around and visit the people and go for money, and they got enough money to buy the truck and the 2 other water trucks we built. One we built, one Harold Vandenberg built.
Who else helped found the department besides your dad?
Oh, found a department with Webb Ireland, Orlo Malik, Ted Bernetsky. I can't think of his name now. He's dead. Art Hoyman, Marvin Murphy.
And your dad was the first chief, right?
My dad was the first chief.
Now, Mike, you tell a story about my grandpa Vandenberg, Dad's dad,
Yep.
during that fire. Can you recount that story for us?
I sure can. I'll tell you a little more information you really need to know here, but I had a paper out. I sold a Milwaukee Sentinel paper on Sunday. It was a Sunday paper after church, after each Mass on Sunday morning over at St. Nick's. And so the papers would be delivered on Saturday night overnight, but they had to be put together. And so I had to get up really early on Sunday morning in order to put the papers together and have them ready to sell after the 5 o'clock Mass. Remember, there'd be a 5 a.m. Mass, Casey? So anyway, I got up this particular Sunday morning and I saw a fire truck, the Seymour fire truck, go by, the red light going, and all of a sudden I looked out. We were living on S in our coffee's place, and I could see smoke big time. My mother was up at the same time. She said, "Mike, you're going to have to run up there because I think it's Margie's place." Well, she lived above the barber shop, just 2 doors down. You couldn't tell where the fire exactly was. So I went running over there, and as soon as I saw where it was, I ran back and told my mother it was Nick Leish's Tavern. And then I went back, and here I am as a young 12-year-old or 13-year-old young fella watching these guys trying to fight this fire. And if it would have been a windy day or something, the whole town could have burned down very easily. It just so happened that, and I don't know how they kept that fire under control. But anyway, Punkin, your dad, Casey, I can remember very well, he cut the power to the building. It made an impression on me because guys are kind of like holding this ladder up, and he's going up this ladder. I mean, it looked totally unsafe what he was doing, number one. And number two, he had 2 axes, and he held one axe behind the power line, and he took the other axe and he would whack these power lines. And I think there was several lines going into the tavern, so they disrupted the fire or the power to the tavern. The other thing I remember, Stoop, Carl Greiner, he had a new bulk milk truck.
Yeah.
And it was not yet delivered to him. It was at Coffee Motors in Kaukauna. And he was going to take delivery of it, I think, the next week. But anyway, they needed a water truck desperately. And so they called Leo Coffee, apparently got the garage, and the Ford dealership in Kaukauna opened up, and went and got that truck, and then you, Casey, you said you were down at the quarry
Jack
running the
Vandenberg.
pump.
Jack Vandenberg and I.
Yeah, to pump the water to keep the fire
Yeah.
truck supplied. Yeah, wow. But anyway, that was the impetus that drove. I think the guys realized then that we have to have a fire department, and that was the real impetus, I think.
Yeah, next old tavern would be here yet if they had a fire department.
Yeah.
Fireman was in the basement at first. It was downstairs, but it was all around that where the furnace was, because I think Butch fired up before he went to church, and then he must have forgot it or something, and that's when it took off.
So the fire started in the furnace?
No, around the furnace there was, I imagine, paper or something. And
Maybe you left the furnace door open or something, do you think?
the air for the draft, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mike, you mentioned Margie, and I know who she is, but probably a lot of kids who grew up after me wouldn't know who you're talking to.
Okay. Margie Randerson was the wife of Pat Randerson. Pat Randerson died at a very young age, and they had 2 children, Ron and Joanne. And Marge rented the apartment above Bill Conrad's barber shop, and that's where she raised Joanne and Ron Randerson.
And Joanne is now Joanne Bowers.
Yep.
And a lot of people my age and older will remember Margie as working for the school district.
Absolutely. Yep.
She did the finances for the school district,
Yeah.
the bookkeeping and the accounting.
Prior to that, when the kids were young, she didn't work out until she started working at Joe Geenan's grocery store
Right.
first. She
Mhm.
worked there as a checkout gal, and then Hank Patch came in, and he saw her there at the grocery store, and finally he came and he offered her a job. But she says, "I don't know if I can do that." Hank Patch said, "Margie, you can do it," and so he helped her a great deal to
You know, she
succeed
was a
in that
great
job.
lady.
Yeah.
Yep,
She
I remember
was.
her from when I was a kid. And Hank Patch was the school superintendent here.
Principal, yeah. He took over from Bachhuber, I think.
Bachhuber, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because Mr. Patch was superintendent when I went to school here.
Yeah.
So I remember Mr. Patch. So did you play any sports when you were growing up as a kid?
Did I play?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose we played football in high school. I know that. I remember as a freshman I tackled Orville Romanesco one time, and he got up and the first thing he said to me, "You'll never tackle me again." But that we weren't supposed to play, but we had no equipment. We were out just the football is all we had. There weren't any football teams that played softball.
Didn't you play a lot of baseball growing up as a kid?
Well, we played softball teams every night. We played someplace.
Mm-hmm.
And baseball was big in Freedom when you were a kid.
Oh, baseball was big in Freedom for a long time. They had some tremendous teams during the war.
Tell the story that you've told us before about when the Negro League came.
The Negro League, I remember.
There was a team of black baseball players that came, and didn't they have to leave the county before nightfall?
I was Bachhuber was principal, and they sang at the high school, and they couldn't get a room in Outagamie County for them. But some way he finagled that they were going to take him someplace, but they took him to Apple and got him into the Conway Hotel. Had to get him out early in the morning.
So that was a singing group, not a baseball
singing
team.
group.
And they sang in Freedom?
Yes.
Okay. What else do you want to tell us about freedom or memories you have of freedom?
Ken, since my stroke, I've forgot more than I know.
I don't know. I think you know a lot more than you give yourself credit
Yes,
for.
Casey, you do.
You're a wealth of information.
Yes, you are.
I guarantee you not many people would remember that singing group coming here.
No.
Well, wasn't much going on in freedom besides anything like that.
What other, we talked a little bit earlier about Father Van Dyke. What other priests do you remember from freedom? You talked about one who gave great sermons. I think it was the first Father Hippus.
Father Ray Hippus. Remember him?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Boy, I enjoyed going to church when he was here. Father Cools came. He was a nice priest.
Well, Father Cools came after Father Van Dyke.
Yes.
Right? And
yeah,
then
we
Father...
had that interim priest that I don't even remember his name anymore. He was only here a short while.
Okay, I didn't even remember that.
And then Father Cools came, and Father Ray Hippus came, and Father Al Hippus came, and he was here for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And who was next? I think
Um,
Father Feeney.
yeah, we'll just skip over him.
And then Father Nichols, I think.
Yep. But by this time you were gone, Mike, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You got too big for freedom?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say I got too big for it. It's just that my job took me elsewhere.
Well, I remember Mike and Jim Greiner when they were mechanics in the old Greiner cheese factory.
Yeah. So we put ourselves through tech school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were a mechanic?
Jim Greiner and I had a little business. We fixed cars in our spare time in the old cheese factory building. Well, we were going to, it was called Appleton Vocational School and Fox Valley Tech. We both took a 2-year automotive technology course there, Jim Greiner and I did. He was a year behind me, but yep, that's how we bankrolled ourselves. So
I can remember Mike when he was just a kid, and he would be crawling under them stock cars out.
yeah. I don't know, I think you're somewhat responsible for all that, Casey, really, because of that infamous stock car race, the first race I ever saw. I'll tell the story here, and I know that Casey will remember this, but anyway, there was the Skunk Hill Tavern was up at the corner of C and S. And where your dad talked about living with the Murphys, that was Frank Murphy had a farm across the road there from the Skunk Hill Tavern. Nice, big, beautiful farmhouse they had. And Frank had a lot of land, and he was in the gravel business and stuff. Anyway, Rusty, your dad's friend, had a modified stock car that they would go to Oshkosh and race. I don't know, where else did you go race, Casey?
That 10 we took to Slinger, we went to Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point.
Okay. Well, anyway,
Apple Creek.
Here I am, a 10-year-old kid living on the farm. Our farm is just going back to the east, just down the hill from the Skunk Hill, from Murphy's, the next farm down from Frank Murphy's. And anyway, Mayor Orville Gunring, and apparently there was a discussion at the Skunk Hill Tavern about whether Rusty Murphy's stock car could beat John Gunring's brand new 52 Buick Roadmaster. And so money was put down on this stock car race. And it took a couple days for this to all materialize. And anyway, so the day of the race was set.
No, it didn't take him. We came from someplace racing. We stopped at the bar.
Okay.
And they got going about, and Mayor would beat that car. So we went down, we stopped at every place on there, and nobody closed off the road down on the Vine Road.
Okay. Somehow I knew the race was going to happen anyway.
And
yeah.
She took off.
Yep. But they raced from C to Vine Road and back to the Skunk Hill Tavern. And I can remember standing by the mailbox by our farm, and Rusty came by with that Ford stock car. He was way ahead of Mayor by that time already, and by the time they turned around and came back, Rusty was a long ways ahead. So anyway, but that was my first recollection of a race, and I think that's what was the seed that planted my racing seed, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that race like as if it was yesterday.
So, you went around with Rusty and you worked on his crew?
What kind of crew? What do you mean?
Well, you went around with Rusty in his stock car?
Oh, sure.
And so you worked with him on his crew, or what?
Yeah. Him and I was it.
Now, do you remember the time that you raced?
Once, barely.
Where was it?
Apple Creek, the old Apple Bowl.
Do you remember anything about the race or not?
I remember it started probably about 3 times. One time I got off to a big, nice start, but the next time I didn't make. I don't think I made it around once, and I was probably last.
Because Anna Mae remembers being there, and she didn't know you were going to be racing. And she said when she heard you were racing, she was so nervous, but she didn't need to be because you came in dead last.
I was probably right.
That's what she remembers about it.
The only race I ever run. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Now, what's your wife's name?
Judith
And where did you meet her?
Ludwig's.
And you met her in 1960?
60, I think, in December. No, November.
During deer hunting.
The guys wouldn't stay up and hunt the last Sunday, so I came home, and that's when I met her.
Do you remember the story about how you met her?
I remember a little different. She tells it, so.
Well, let's hear your version. I know her version.
I got a little something to add on this too, because
myself.
I remember Casey. He was a single guy, and he was real laid back and stuff. But I'll tell you, when he met her, that was a changed guy. His mission was to woo that girl. I'll never forget how Casey changed. She wasn't going to escape, Casey. I know that. Yeah.
Well, his mom was saying novenas that he would get married.
Yeah.
So we always joke that mom was the answer to the prayer.
Yeah.
But the guys did get married. There was Rusty, he didn't get married. He got married after I did. Tony Dicker got married after I did. Gene Gunning. There was a whole bunch of us that went chase around every weekend someplace.
That's right too. I forgot about that.
Great, I remember taking off in the summer, on Saturday noon. That was it. We went
Where did you normally go?
wherever you wanted to go.
And you didn't come home that night?
Oh no, we went to the weekend.
So your mom always told a story that when they were gone on weekends up to Lakewood, she always knew when you had a party because when she came home the floor was always scrubbed. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that only happened once or twice.
Not according to her.
I know.
And what about when they went to California?
No comment.
No, you gotta tell us.
No, I don't have to tell you.
Well, didn't you say that when you woke up in the morning you never knew who was gonna be here when they were in California?
That's true. It started out the first night, the first night at a party anyway. Bernadine Garrett and I don't know who all came. We had a house party, and Heine and Mare found out we had a house party, and then, from then on, I didn't know who was going to be here in the morning.
And who was Heine?
It was Wayne Gertz.
How did Heine get his nickname?
I don't know.
And then he was your best man when you got married.
He was my best man.
So, Mom tells the story that when you met, it was at Ludwig, she was bowling with her girlfriends, and that she saw you sitting at the bar all by yourself, and she didn't think you should be there alone. So she came and invited you to come and bowl with her and her girlfriends. Is that how it really goes?
I don't know, you have to ask her.
Well, she also says that the next morning when she got up for school, and she was still in high school, she was a senior, but the next morning she got up and she told her mom that she met the man she was going to marry, and her mom almost fainted.
I wasn't there, so I wouldn't know.
That you've heard it enough.
I heard it
When did you get married?
in 1961,
September 9th.
September 9th.
And it was a hot day, wasn't it?
Very, very hot.
What else do you remember about your wedding?
I don't know. I know that Judy fainted after Mass.
Yeah.
And your Aunt Verna and your cousin Betty didn't even make it to the service.
Well, I don't know if they made it to the service or not. They didn't make it to the wedding at night, I think. They went to the tavern after the service.
So your mom was a Gertz, and the Gertz family was a huge family, and they were very, very close.
They had 9 kids. My grandpa Gertz died in 1912. And there were 9 kids that lived. And yeah, after Dad get killed, Arnold was running the farm pretty much. He was the oldest boy. And he got drafted in World War I. Bert took over the farm. Then Bill got drafted. Hank got drafted and was ready to go, and the war was over and it was canceled. And Jake married Evelyn Vandenberg, Bob Gertz's dad, and he was killed in an automobile accident near Little Chute. And Joe. And there was Dean Yeager and my mother and Mrs. Mart Vandenberg Lean.
So your Uncle Jake is the one who died in the car accident?
Jake died in 1926, before
So-
I was born.
Before you were born. What stories do you remember about being part of the Gertz family?
Oh, I know had lots of parties where there were Gertzes were there, meals, and the whole family would get together. But as far as a lot of parties and stuff, I don't know. I was probably the closest to Joe. They lived uptown here, first in where Munlocks live, and then they lived in the farm with old Bill Van Rixel. And when Bill died, then Joe bought that other farm where he lived on McHugh Road.
Is that the farm that Nick Gertz took over?
That's the farm that Nick had.
Okay. And the house is still there, but the barn is now gone.
The buildings are all gone, I think, except the house.
So and the Gertz family was always very close, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you're still close to your Gertz cousins today?
Well, I suppose as close as we can get. But yeah, we're fairly close.
Anything else you remember about the Gertz family?
I don't think so, Ken, not really.
Your grandma Gertz died in 1932, and she lived here for a while when you were a kid.
Yeah, I remember.
What do you remember about her living here?
Oh, I just can remember her being in bed sick. I don't know if I've ever seen her up or anything.
So she was an invalid the whole time she was here?
I'm pretty well, yes. She had
Okay.
diabetes. I don't know everything.
Okay. How many kids did you have?
Me? 3.
And besides me, who else?
Jim died a couple of years ago, and Kathleen.
That Jim will have passed away 2 years ago next month. What do you remember about being a father? What was the hardest part?
Hardest part, watching you.
Why watching me?
Had to keep you in line.
I don't think I was the one who got out of line. What else do you remember about being a dad?
I remember the first time I changed a diaper, your mom was selling Tupperware. And I was babysitting, and you had a dirty diaper and I had to change you. I had never changed a diaper before in my life. I put on that diaper and pinned it up. I thought, boy, that's there. You went in about 3 steps and the diaper was gone.
Now, you told a story in the past about Christmas Eves with your parents and hiding the gifts and signaling when you were coming home. You want to tell that story?
Oh, wow. That was my sister Elaine still believed in Santa Claus. And my dad and mother were Eddie Gertz's godparents. So on Christmas Eve, my dad would always take the present over for Eddie Gertz, and when he'd come back, of course, he'd have to come around the corner by the tavern. The other streets weren't in. And there he would dim the lights a couple times. We knew it was him, and we'd always be outside ready to go, and we'd pile in the car and we'd go to Grandpa's for an half an hour, and gosh, we'd come back and Santa Claus was here.
Mm-hmm.
And how long did that go on for? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't remember. 2 or 3 years, I suppose. I don't know.
What were your favorite radio shows?
Oh, used to listen to Captain Midnight, Tom Mix, Jack Armstrong. There was a couple more. I guess. I don't know.
Did you listen to radio comedies?
Oh, Jack Benny, Bob Hope.
And your mom's favorite was Fibber McGee.
Fibber McGee, maybe, I don't know, yeah, he always.
Yep, I know that because she told me that. Because she was so excited when he came on TV once on Chico and the Man. That whole Friday was reserved to see Fibber McGee because she'd never seen him live before. But she remembered she loved talking about Fibber McGee and Molly, and whenever they'd open that closet door, and she would laugh when she would talk about them opening the closet.
Yeah.
Yep, so your mom loved Fibber McGee. And television came around in the 50s. You were one of the first families to have a TV here.
Yeah.
Tell the story about the football game and the antenna.
The antenna. Wisconsin was in the Rose Bowl. I don't know anything about the.
You built that big antenna in the yard.
Well, he got that. No, we put it on top of the house. An antenna.
Because it was being broadcast in Milwaukee,
It was on a Milwaukee's channel,
and he wanted to have it come in here.
and we got it. We had about 15, 20 people in this house at a time. They were all here to see the football game.
So you and your dad put a huge antenna on top of the house to get the signal.
I wouldn't say I did. I don't remember being up there, but
But your
maybe
dad.
I was. I don't know.
Any other stories you have like that
Not too many.
that you can remember? What were your favorite TV shows back in the 50s or the 60s?
Well, they were mostly comic shows or a few quiz shows. What the hell there used to be on
$64,000 question.
What?
$64,000 question.
There were shows before then.
Remember the Marx Brothers, Groucho Marx? Remember
Yeah,
them
I
guys?
remember,
You bet your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you liked westerns.
That's still my favorite. They'd be on.
And every day he still watches Gunsmoke every afternoon.
Yep. Oh yeah.
That won't give it up. So Mike, what did you want to talk about or bring up? I know you did some research today and looked at the book that Pat Conkle had written on freedom.
Well, I guess you kind of caught me a little flat-footed here. It's just interesting to hear your dad tell these stories because I certainly remember your grandpa Kenny Pumpkin,
Yeah.
real good, and I remember your mother really good, Casey. What a simpler time it was back in those days. It seemed like to me. Yeah, I don't know.
They were the best time there ever was.
Yes, I think they were.
Yeah,
I think they were.
as far as I'm concerned, the best years
Yeah.
that we lived when we were kids
Yeah.
was probably the best time that was ever in this country. After World War II.
Yeah, exactly. The guys came home from the war, and it was really a different time. We talked about when the VFW was formed,
Yeah.
and the fire department, the camaraderie that
Yeah,
we saw here
they would work
between
together.
those two, and it was really it was America at its best. I think it
You
really
knew your
was.
neighbors and
Yes.
kids played together.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I know, the kids are, we'd be outside playing, my mother'd have to call us in.
That's right.
Yeah, it's time to come in,
Yeah,
time to
we
go to
went
bed. Or
like in the summer, correct, whenever it wasn't raining, we played softball at night.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you guys up at Murphy's Corners, they had a ball diamond up there. You play up there quite a bit?
I played up there a couple seasons while
Yeah.
that was going.
They had a regular park there, kind of. Didn't Frank
yeah,
Murphy did?
Frank Murphy,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It.
It was a lot of trees planted, but nothing ever happened to it. I
Right.
don't think.
But I don't know. People invented their entertainment.
Oh.
It seemed like they. I
You
don't
went
know.
out, you had a couple bucks in your pocket, you could go.
Yeah. Exactly.
A lot of times they went to the old Nightingale and had a buck or two, and we all they'd have.
Mm-hmm.
Used to cost 40 cents to get in, I think, so you'd have 60 cents to spend. So
Yeah.
you'd go downstairs and get a hamburger for you'd come home for about 15 cents.
Yeah.
Bottle or can of soda or something. And
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the musical acts from the Nightingale? Because everybody told me that they had all of the big bands of the era.
they did have, I went to one, I forget who it was. The only reason I was there was the Sunday before that, Rusty and Tony got picked up by the state men, and they had them in the car, and we were sitting on the outside here arguing, and I reached around and opened the snap on the door. The door was locked in the back, and out of the car, we had to clear across that parking lot. They said they never saw me run so fast that I was in the car first, but oh no, but I never saw so many back roads of freedom in all my life.
What did you get stopped for?
Stopped. Got picked up by the state men for two kids drinking. Tony and Rusty, they're both older than I was, but
Do you remember how old you were?
I don't know. Crave. I wasn't old enough to be in the whiskey bar that night.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned earlier you had a Model A.
My dad had a Model A,
What was your first car?
37 Chev.
Who'd you buy it from?
Oh, I bought it from a private party. I don't remember who. In Appleton.
And how,
$600, I think.
how much?
I think 600 it cost.
What do you remember about it?
Not much. The car just went where I wanted to go.
How old were you when you bought it?
19, 20 years old.
19 or 20. What were family holidays and celebrations like? What was your biggest holiday that you remember celebrating?
Fourth of July, of course, Grandpa's birthday. We were up at the cottage, didn't make any difference wherever you were. You came home for Grandpa's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
That was
What other holidays do you remember what you did?
Thanksgiving. I was always deer hunting. New Year's Eve, of course, I remember that a little bit.
But you used to tend bar a lot on New Year's Eve too for Marvin.
After I got married, I tended bar all the time on New Year's Eve.
And one time when I was like maybe 4 and Jim was 3, you attended bar that night and you had a hat that you left in the car of a naked lady. And Jim and I found it. We brought it to Mom and asked her what it was. We never saw it again after that. That
I never
was
did
gone.
either.
Yep, that hat was gone fast.
Well,
So is there anything else you want to add or anything you want to tell us?
I've had a good life. I enjoy living in freedom. I have many friends in this town. I think they're mostly wonderful people, and I'm glad I lived here. And I guess that's about it, Ken.
And anything you want to add, Mike?
Not really, except it has been a pleasure knowing Casey Vandenberg for the amount of time that I've known him. And, you know, he personifies, I think, what's great about freedom. The people stick together, as he said, and, you know, so much can be learned from Casey's generation, I think. We need to be real careful to learn all we can. We see America changing so rapidly compared to the America that we knew. I don't know about you, Casey, but to me it's almost scary sometimes.
It
Yeah,
is.
and so yep. But anyway, that's about all I got to say too.
Okay. Any last words, Casey?
No, that's it.
All right, we're signing off. Thank you.